Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today is a bit of an extra special bonus podcast as the World Championship 2017 has concluded, and I wanted to do a analysis of the series that happened last night. If you have not seen the games yet, I will be spoiling the results, so go ahead and watch it now if you want to. Otherwise, if you already know the results, let's go ahead and get into it. So first, let me just say that Samsung Galaxy played this series fantastically. I think that they didn't necessarily have a better macro, and I don't think they had better drafts, but they did have just better team fighting in general, and they had very strong individual play, and that's primarily the reason they were able to come back and win against SKT. And in such a convincing fashion too, but really, it looks impressive to say, wow, they 3-0'd SKT, but that's the only way you're going to beat SKT. I think that Coma was starting to get a grasp on what Samsung Galaxy's strategies were, what their strengths were, and if the series had gone 5 games, I guarantee you SKT would have won. Coma is just too good at what he does, at analyzing what enemy teams do, and in fact, SKT, every series that went 5 games this tournament, they won it. So it was going to be a 3-0 for Samsung, or it was going to be a 3-2 for SKT. Those are the only two options, especially once Samsung won the first 2 games. Now, let's go ahead and talk about game by game kind of what happened. First of all, in game 1, I do think that Samsung actually won the draft. Interestingly enough, I liked SKT's comp better, but Samsung knew what they were doing. They basically said, we know we're going to pick for a strong bottom lane with the Xayah Janna to make sure that Ruler is just incredibly safe the whole time. There's nothing you can do about the Flash, Ultimate, and a Janna available. There's no way to go on him. So Ruler was able to just step up and hit towers. He's tanking tower shots, but it doesn't matter because he's so incredibly safe. The second you try to start an initiation with a Gragas body slam or with a Varus ultimate, he just presses R and he's out, and then you're down an ultimate. You trade ultimates, but you're still down an ultimate, and Ruler can just start stepping up and hitting the tower again. So it's just impossible to deal with him. The other advantage Samsung had is that they had the pocket cannon, which is a huge advantage because SKT were basically picking to try and stymie the early offensive. They were going to pick their bottom lane a weaker overall champion picks in Varus Lulu, but it was stronger in lane. So they said, our bottom lane is going to be stronger in lane, so you can't shove us in, and then we're going to enable Huni by giving him the Gnar. No matter what you pick, we can bully you, right? Wrong, because Cuvée was sitting on the AD on hit Kennen top lane, which is huge because Gnar can't really split pushing threat in his own right, and once they get ahead, there's nothing you can do about the Kennen. He's just going to split push all day, and you can't really stop him, especially with him. Meanwhile, Samsung played it very nicely by disallowing Faker from playing a roaming mid laner. They banned out the Taliyah and they banned out the Syndra. So Faker could have gone Ryze here. Instead, they opted for the Cassiopeia, which I'm not necessarily not a fan of, but I do think that that severely limited Faker's ability to do anything. You can't have him trapped in his lane in the early game. You want him to be able to roam. And so because of this, they were able to get early advantages, and they were able to slowly build up into the late game. So it just ended up being very, very nicely played by Samsung to sort of realize what SKT were going to be doing in the draft at the beginning of the game and adapting to it. Now, game 2 was a lot closer. SKT realized we can't allow him to play the Kennen. We can't allow the mid lane to not be on a roaming champion. So they switched Faker to the Ryze, which is a really good pick. I think that enables Faker to do what he wanted to do. And with the but the problem is they gave up the Jarvan the 4th in the jungle, who's just such a strong pick. I don't think you can do that. And then Cuvée was able to pick up the Gnar, so he's still on an aggressive champion. So by the time you hit the game, SKT were able to go up early, and really it was just superior team fighting that brought them back into it. The 3-man Cataclysm followed by the 3-man Featherstorm followed by the 3-man Gnar in that mid-game team fight absolutely crushed SKT, and they committed too hard to the fight. The other thing is, I think that SKT gained themselves a little too hard with the Yasuo pick top lane. Yes, it is going to counter the Gnar early, but you're playing for the early game, and I don't think that that's where SKT's strengths lie. Their strengths lie in getting the late game and having superior decision-making and superior macro. So sure, you're going to be able to beat up on the Gnar early game, but the problem is if the Yasuo falls behind, he's just a squishy melee AD carry. You can't keep him safe. He doesn't really do anything for your team besides maybe windwalling something important or maybe getting off a good ultimate on a priority target. But that's about it. So the second you fall behind on the Yasuo, there's no coming back, even though it's going to be better than the Gnar in lane. And I think it just kind of betrayed SKT's strategy. The other thing is, I think they needed to remove the Xayah. Again, the Xayah-Janna combo is just so safe. Ruler is almost impossible to deal with when he's on that pick with the Janna. So ultimately, there wasn't much SKT could do. They lose the big fight, especially trying to initiate. You can't go on to the Jarvan the Fourth. He can always fly. If you go on the tank, well, he's designed to soak up damage, and once you've used your cooldowns on him, the rest of his team annihilates you. So, and once the Baron was picked up, the game was all but over for SKT. They played the early game very well, but the one team fight they had, the superior team fighting composition, and they were able to win it. Closer than before, I think SKT made a lot of the right adaptations, banning the Janna to keep Samsung Galaxy from playing the same Janna-Xayah combo that just made Ruler unkillable. And I think that the biggest issue was it was a very low damage team composition, which is going to be great in lane, and it's going to still allow Tristana. The biggest issue with the pick, though, is that you're a one-trick pony. As long as you can kill the Tristana or threaten the Tristana, you have no more damage. Karma not in the late game, so they put a lot of pressure on Bang's shoulders, and I don't think Bang was necessarily the person you wanted to put the pressure on, but I don't feel like he was the one you really to be working with in the late game. I think you needed to have Faker on an offensive pick heavily for early game. You sub in Blank because you know he's going to have more pressure. Peanut was just not showing up, so you sub in Blank. You go with a Trundle early game in the top lane to counter Cuvé's Cho'Gath. You finally force Cuvé off of a bully champion top lane, which is a huge advantage for them. I honestly think Samsung should have still gone with the Xayah, and they could have played the Lulu, and it would have been very similar to the same thing for their composition. However, instead they opt for the Varus Lulu bottom lane, which I wasn't a fan of. I think it made Ruler very vulnerable. However, SKT were not able to exploit Varus' immobility and exploit the windows twice, but in the late game teamfights when it mattered, they couldn't get onto him. And the Trundle Pillar in a couple of situations did actually doing what they wanted to do by body blocking their own team. You allow the tanks to get in the back line and start eating your carries, and there's nothing else you can do. Still very close. It went late. There were a couple of Barons involved. And if Faker's flash in the last pick was almost available, literally seconds from available, if he had his flash, he would have been able to escape, and they might not have won the game too late. And I do feel like SKT's team composition were not addressed. So, in general, I think Samsung Galaxy had the outplays more than they had superior drafts. Obviously, game showed up with the AD on hit Kennen and the Xayah Janna, but I think that at the end of the day, it was just superior when and where to place their carries. It was just very, very well, very nicely done by Samsung Galaxy, and they've proven world champions. I think even in this tournament, they managed to 4 games. Longshu, who was the LCK Summer Split finalist, their champion, who beat SKT in 4 games. So if Samsung can beat Longshu, that kind of almost had to expect to see this coming. And SKT, meanwhile, portion of the series. Sure, they won all their series, but they were taken to 5 games. They lost games in the group stage, which they usually don't do. They were looking weaker. So ultimately, very nicely played, and very nice to see a new world champion. Going to be very excited. Skins later. Honestly, I'm expecting to see Samsung Xayah and Samsung Malzahar. I think those 2 picks were very key to their success. But anyways, that's just kind of my breakdown of the series. Go ahead and leave me your comments on the World Finals down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you thought were the most important things of the series. And if you want to see more content like this, let me know as well down in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well for you guys for Worlds. And if you're hungry for more, grab the tumblr.com. I upload an article just about each and every single day. For much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all